The lights of New Geneva Station flickered like distant stars through the thick glass windows. Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her face against the cool surface and watched ships drift past in the darkness of space. Some were sleek and silver like Earth vessels, others looked like floating crystals or twisted metal sculptures. Each one carried beings from worlds she could barely imagine. Sarah pulled back from the window and checked her tablet. The meeting would start in 10 minutes. She had spent 3 years preparing for moments like this. As the station's lead xenobiologist, she studied how different alien species communicated and behaved. Her job was to help prevent misunderstandings that could lead to conflicts. The research wing of New Geneva Station was quiet compared to the busy trade decks below. Sarah's footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as she walked toward Conference Room 7. She carried a small bag filled with translation devices and cultural reference guides. Today's meeting involved trade negotiations between the Kraxan Empire and the Centauri Collective. Both species were known for being aggressive, but for different reasons. The Kraxans were warriors. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick, armored skin and faces that looked like they were carved from stone. Their culture valued strength above everything else. They spoke in loud, harsh voices and settled disagreements with violence. The Centauri were traders who would cheat anyone to make a profit. They looked more like humans, but had 4 arms and eyes that could see heat patterns. They were clever and sneaky where the Kraxans were direct and brutal. Sarah stopped outside the conference room and took a deep breath. She had mediated between hostile species before, but something felt different today. The air seemed thick and heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. She shook off the feeling and pressed the door control. The room was already tense when she entered. 3 Kraxan warriors sat on one side of a metal table that looked too small for their massive frames. Their leader, Thakmer, had scars covering his arms and neck. His yellow eyes tracked Sarah's movement as she took her seat at the head of the table. Across from the Kraxans, 4 Centauri traders whispered to each other in their clicking language. Their leader, a female named Zixtal, had jewelry covering all 4 of her arms. "Good morning, everyone," Sarah said through her translation device. The words came out in both Kraxan battlespeak and Centauri trade tongue. "I hope we can reach an agreement that benefits both of your peoples." Thakmer slammed his fist on the table. The metal dented under the blow. "We do not need human words," he growled. "Kraxans take what we want. Centauri give us mining rights to Kepler 442b, or we take them." Zixtal's heat-seeing eyes flashed with anger. "The Centauri Collective has legal claim to that system. We purchased those rights from the previous inhabitants before your people even knew the system existed." "Previous inhabitants are dead," Thakmer said with a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "Dead beings cannot own planets." Sarah felt her stomach twist. She had read the reports about Kepler 442b. The Kraxans had wiped out an entire species to claim the system, then discovered that the Centauri had already bought legal mining rights from those same people. Now both sides wanted the rich mineral deposits on the planet's moons. "Perhaps we can find a compromise," Sarah suggested. "The system has multiple moons. Maybe both groups could silence." Thakmer's voice shook the room. He stood up, his head nearly touching the ceiling. "Humans are weak. You know nothing of strength or honor. You should not speak in matters between real warriors." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice calm. "I'm here to help both sides find a peaceful solution. Violence won't." Thakmer moved faster than something so large should have been able to move. His massive hand swept across the table and caught Sarah across the face with a backhand blow that lifted her from her chair. She flew backward and hit the wall with a wet crack. Her vision exploded into white light, then darkness. The last thing Sarah remembered was the taste of blood in her mouth, and the sound of the Centauri traders screaming in their clicking language. Then everything went black. She did not see the shadow that fell across the conference room's windows. She did not notice how the lights dimmed for just a moment. As if something had passed between the station and the nearest star, she could not feel the ancient presence that had been watching her for months suddenly focus all of its attention on the conference room. Something old, and Powerful had witnessed what happened to Sarah Chun, something that had drifted through the emptiness between galaxies for countless ages, feeding on the energy of dying stars and the fear of lesser beings. It had many names in many languages, but most simply called it a void wraith. The creature had first noticed Sarah 3 months ago when she had helped an injured Altarian child who had gotten separated from its parents in the station's shopping district. While other humans and aliens walked past the crying youngster, Sarah had knelt down and spent 2 hours helping it find its family. She had even shared her lunch with the frightened child. The void wraith had watched from the shadows, curious about this human who showed kindness to creatures that were not her own species. It began following Sarah, learning her routines and observing her interactions with others. The ancient being discovered emotions it had forgotten during its long existence in the cold emptiness of space. For the first time in eons, it felt something other than hunger and rage. Now, as Sarah lay unconscious on the conference room floor with blood running from her nose and mouth, the void wraith felt something new and terrible awakening within itself. The protective instinct was stronger than anything it had experienced in its vast lifetime. Someone had hurt the being it had come to cherish above all others. The lights in Conference Room 7 flickered again. In the ventilation grate above the table, 2 points of starlight appeared in the darkness. They watched as Thakmor laughed and the Centauri traders backed away in fear. The Kraxan warrior wiped Sarah's blood from his knuckles and sat back down as if nothing had happened. Station security would arrive in minutes to help Sarah and restore order to the meeting. Medical teams would treat her injuries and she would recover. But something fundamental had changed in that moment when Thakmor's hand struck her face. The void wraith had made a decision. The creature that had once devoured the life force of entire worlds now had something precious to protect. And it would destroy anything that threatened Sarah Chun. No matter how long it took or how much blood was spilled, Thakmor had struck. A human woman, not knowing that one of the universe's most dangerous predators had fallen in love with her. That mistake would cost him everything. Sarah woke up in the medical bay with a splitting headache. White lights burned her eyes as she tried to sit up. A gentle hand pushed her back down onto the bed. "Easy there, Dr. Chun," said Dr. Martinez, the station's chief medical officer. "You have a severe concussion and 3 broken ribs. That Kraxan hit you pretty hard." Sarah touched her face and winced. Her left cheek was swollen and purple. Her mouth tasted like metal and pain medication. "How long was I unconscious?" "About 6 hours," Dr. Martinez replied while checking her tablet. "We had to use a bone regenerator on your ribs. The good news is there's no permanent damage. The bad news is you need to stay here for observation for at least 2 days. Sarah tried to remember what had happened after Thakmor hit her, but everything was blank. What about the meeting? Did they finish the negotiations? Dr. Martinez looked uncomfortable. The meeting ended when you got hurt. Station security arrested Thakmor for assault, but his government is demanding his release. They claim it was a cultural misunderstanding. A cultural misunderstanding, Sarah repeated bitterly. Right, because hitting people is how Kraxans say hello? Dr. Martinez was about to respond when the lights in the medical bay flickered. The main power indicator on the wall went from green to yellow for a few seconds, then back to green. Both women looked up at the ceiling. "That's the 3rd power fluctuation today," Dr. Martinez said with a frown. "Engineering says they can't find the source. Everything checks out normal on their diagnostics." Sarah lay back down and closed her eyes. The pain medication was making her drowsy, but something nagged at the back of her mind. The power fluctuations felt somehow connected to her. Though she could not explain why, 3 levels down in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Patel stared at his screens in confusion. The station's power grid was behaving in ways he had never seen before. Energy was being drained from certain sections, but not in any pattern that made sense. It was not a malfunction or an attack. It was almost like something was learning how the station's systems worked. "Run another diagnostic on the main power couplings," he told his assistant. a young Altarian named Kess, whose blue skin showed stress patterns around her large eyes. "Sir, I have run the diagnostic 12 times," Kess said in her musical voice. "All systems show normal operation, but the power drain is definitely real. Something is drawing energy from the grid, but our sensors cannot detect what it is." Patel rubbed his tired eyes. "Check the security footage from the affected areas. Maybe we can see what's causing this." Kess pulled up the security feeds on her workstation. She scrolled through hours of empty corridors and maintenance areas. Then she stopped and made a small noise of surprise. "Sir, you need to see this." Patel walked over to look at her screen. The footage showed a section of the lower maintenance deck at 0347 hours. The corridor was empty and normal for most of the recording. Then, for just 3 seconds, something moved across the camera's view. It looked like a shadow, but shadows did not move on their own in the space station. And this shadow seemed to have depth and substance, like smoke made solid. "Play it again," Patel said quietly. They watched the same 3 seconds over and over. Each time, the shadow thing moved differently, as if it was aware of being watched and was testing different ways to move through the camera's field of view. "Check all the other cameras in that section," Patel ordered. Kess pulled up 6 more camera feeds from the same area. In each one, at slightly different times, the shadow appeared. But it was not the same shadow. Each appearance showed something larger and more defined, as if whatever it was had been getting stronger or more confident about showing itself. In the latest footage from 2 hours ago, the shadow had almost looked like a creature, something tall and flowing with points of light where eyes might be. It had moved down the corridor with purpose, not randomly like gas or smoke would move. "Sir," Kess whispered, "I think something is living in our station." Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarters, Fakemore paced back and forth in his cell like a caged animal. Station security had given him a room large enough for his size, but he felt trapped anyway. The Kraxan warrior was not used to being confined. His people settled disputes with combat, not with laws and jail cells. The door chimed and Commander Hayes, the station's security chief, entered. She was a tall human woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from her military service. Fakemore had expected another soft human, but this one carried herself like a soldier. "Your government has agreed to pay compensation for Dr. Chun's medical expenses," Commander Hayes said without emotion. "In exchange, we're releasing you tomorrow morning." "But you're banned from New Geneva Station for 1 standard year," Fakemore snorted. "Humans are weak. That female should have blocked my strike if she did not want to be hurt." Commander Hayes stared at him with cold eyes. "Dr. Chen was trying to help you reach a peaceful agreement. She's dedicated her life to understanding and helping alien species. You attack someone who was trying to make your life better?" "I do not need help from inferior beings," Fakemore replied. The lights in the cell flickered. Both the Kraxan and the human looked up. Commander Hayes checked her communication device and saw several reports of power fluctuations throughout the station. "Engineering is working on the power issues," she told Fakemore. "Try to get some sleep. Your transport leaves at 0800 tomorrow." After Commander Hayes left, Fakemore sat on his bunk and stared at the ceiling. Something felt wrong, but he could not identify what it was. The air in the cell seemed thicker than before, and the temperature had dropped several degrees. He pulled his sleeping blanket around his massive shoulders. In the ventilation shaft above his cell, 2 points of starlight watched him through the metal grating. The Void Wraith had found the being that had hurt Sarah. It studied the Kraxan warrior, learning his scent and the sound of his breathing. The ancient creature was patient. It had waited eons between meals before. It could wait a little longer for the right moment to act. Back in the medical bay, Sarah drifted in and out of sleep. Her dreams were strange and vivid. She saw herself floating in the darkness of space, surrounded by stars that pulsed like heartbeats. In the dream, she was not afraid. Something vast and protective moved around her, keeping her safe from the cold emptiness. In one dream, she saw through different eyes. Eyes that could perceive energy and emotion as clearly as humans saw light and color. From this perspective, she watched herself working in her laboratory, helping injured aliens, sharing her lunch with lost children. She saw herself as this. Other beings saw her and understood that she was cherished beyond measure. The dreams felt too real to be just products of her injured brain. When Sarah woke up for brief moments, she could swear she felt a presence in the room with her. Something that cared about her more than anything else in the universe. She was right. In the corner of the medical bay, invisible to human senses, the void wraith maintained its vigil. It watched over Sarah's recovery while simultaneously exploring every inch of New Geneva Station. The creature was learning the layout of its new hunting ground and identifying every potential threat to the human it loved. The station's inhabitants did not yet understand that their home had become the territory of an apex predator. But they would learn soon enough. Thakmer woke up to the sound of screaming. The Kraxan warrior rolled off his bunk and looked around his cell. The screaming was coming from somewhere else in the detention area. It was high-pitched and terrified, not the battle cry of a warrior, but the sound of someone in mortal fear. The screaming stopped suddenly. Then everything was quiet. Thakmer pressed his face against the small window in his cell door. The corridor outside was empty. The usual guard station at the end of the hall was dark. Even the soft humming of the station's life support systems seemed muted. "Guard?" Thakmer shouted. "What is happening?" No one answered. 20 minutes earlier, Kraxan warrior Victor had been walking toward the detention area to visit his commander. Victor was smaller than Thakmer, but still stood 7 feet tall. His people had sent him to escort their leader home after his release. Victor had taken a shortcut through the maintenance levels. The corridors down there were dimly lit and rarely used by station personnel. He was reading directions on his handheld device when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting red shadows on the metal walls. Victor stopped and looked around. The air felt thick and cold. His breath formed small clouds in front of his face. Something moved in the darkness ahead of him. Victor drew his plasma pistol and activated its targeting light. The beam cut through the darkness but showed only empty corridor. He took a step forward. "Who is there?" he called out in his harsh native language. "Show yourself!" The darkness seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Victor fired his weapon. The plasma bolt struck the far wall and left a glowing scorch mark. Whatever he had seen was no longer there. He turned to head back the way he had come. A wall of living shadow blocked his path. Victor fired again and again. The plasma bolts passed through the shadow without any effect. The darkness moved closer. Within it, 2 points of starlight regarded him with ancient hunger. The Kraxan warrior's scream echoed through the maintenance corridors, until something pulled him into the darkness and silence. Returned. In the security office, Commander Hayes reviewed the morning duty roster when her communications device buzzed with an urgent message. One of her officers had found evidence of a struggle in the lower maintenance area. Scorch marks on the walls and a dropped Kraxan plasma pistol, but no sign of the weapon's owner. "This is the 3rd incident this week," Officer Park told her, when she arrived at the scene. First, it was those 2 Centauri traders who vanished from their quarters. Then the Altarian diplomat, now this Kraxan. All of them just disappeared without any explanation. Commander Hayes examined the scorch marks on the wall. The plasma burns were scattered and random, as if someone had been firing wildly at targets they could not hit. "Check the security cameras again." Officer Park shook his head. "Same as before. The cameras show the victims entering areas where they disappeared, but they never show them leaving. And they never show what happened to them." "What?" "About the weird power fluctuations?" Commander Hayes asked. "Engineering says they're getting worse. Chief Patel thinks something is draining energy from the station's grid, but he can't figure out what." Commander Hayes felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the maintenance corridor. 3 different alien species had vanished from her station in 4 days. All of them had one thing in common. They had all been present during or after the incident where Thakmer assaulted Dr. Chun. In the medical bay. Sarah was feeling well enough to sit up and eat solid food. Dr. Martinez had reduced her pain medication, which meant the constant drowsiness was fading. But with the clearing of her mind came the return of those strange dreams. Even while awake, Sarah could sense something watching her. The feeling was not threatening. If anything, it felt protective and caring, but it was definitely not human. "Dr. Martinez," Sarah said when the doctor came to check on her, "have there been any other incidents on the station lately?" "I keep getting the feeling that something unusual is happening." Dr. Martinez hesitated. "There have been a few disappearances. Some of the aliens who were on the station when you got hurt have gone missing. But Commander Hayes doesn't want us spreading rumors that might cause panic." Sarah's blood went cold. "What kind of disappearances?" "The kind where people go into empty areas of the station and never come out," Dr. Martinez said quietly. "Security can't find any evidence of foul play, but they can't find the missing people either." That night, Sarah lay in her medical bay bed and stared at the ceiling. The dreams were getting stronger and more vivid. In them, she saw the station from impossible angles, as if she was floating through walls and bulkheads. She saw terrified aliens running through dark corridors. She saw something vast and ancient pursuing them with relentless patience. In the most disturbing dream, she realized she was seeing through the eyes of whatever was hunting the aliens. The perspective was alien and powerful, capable of perceiving energy patterns and emotional states. Fear tasted like copper electricity on its senses. The creatures it hunted glowed with the heat of their terror, but when the dreaming entity's attention turned to thoughts of Sarah herself, everything changed. The alien perspective filled with warmth and protective tenderness unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. She was precious beyond measure to this being. She was worth protecting at any cost. Sarah woke with tears on her cheeks. Somehow, she knew the dreams were not dreams at all. They were memories. Something was sharing its thoughts with her, and that something was systematically hunting down everyone who had been involved in her assault. "What are you?" she whispered to the empty medical bay. In the darkness near the ceiling, starlight eyes regarded her with infinite gentleness. The void wraith could not speak in any language she would understand, but it could share emotions and images. It showed her brief flashes of its existence. Eons of loneliness drifting between galaxies. The slow death of hunger when there was nothing left to consume. The growing coldness of a universe that held no meaning or purpose. Then it showed her the moment everything changed. Sarah kneeling beside a lost Altarian child in the station's shopping district. Sarah sharing her lunch with a frightened youngster while other beings walked past without caring. The first spark of warmth the void wraith had felt in countless ages. Sarah understood. This ancient creature had learned to love by watching her show kindness to others. Now it was protecting her the only way it knew how. By eliminating threats. "They're not all threats," Sarah said softly. "Some of them were just in the wrong place at the wrong time." The starlight eyes blinked slowly. The void wraith projected confusion. To its ancient mind, anyone present when Sarah was hurt was complicit in her pain. The distinction between deliberate harm and accidental presence did not exist in its understanding. Sarah realized with growing horror that the creature would not stop until every being connected to her assault was dead, including Thakmer, who was scheduled to be released in 6 hours. She had to find a way to communicate with this thing before it was too late. Before her mysterious protector's love for her turned the entire station into a tomb. Sarah disconnected herself from the medical monitors despite Dr. Martinez's protests. Her ribs still ached and her face was swollen, but she could not stay in bed while innocent beings disappeared. She had to find a way to communicate with the creature that was hunting in her name. "Dr. Chun, you're not cleared for discharge," Dr. Martinez said firmly. "You need at least another day of observation." "People are dying because of me," Sarah replied while pulling on her station uniform. "I can't just lie here doing nothing. The disappearances aren't your fault." "You're the victim here." Sarah paused in putting on her shoes. "No, I don't think I am anymore. I think I'm something else entirely." She left the medical bay despite Dr. Martinez's continued objections. The corridors of New Geneva Station felt different now. Sarah could sense currents of fear flowing through the alien population. Beings who normally conducted business with confidence now moved in groups and avoided the darker areas of the station. Sarah made her way to the detention level. She needed to see Thakmer before his scheduled release. If her mysterious protector was going to target him, she wanted to be there to try to prevent it. The detention area was unusually quiet. The normal guard station was empty, and most of the security monitors showed static or error messages. Sarah found Thakmer's cell and approached the door. The massive Kraxon warrior was sitting on his bunk with his head in his hands. For the first time since Sarah had met him, Thakmer looked afraid. "You came?" he said when he saw her through the door's window. His voice was quieter than usual. I thought you might be dead." "Not dead," Sarah said, "just hurt." "Why did you think I was dead?" Thakmer stood up and walked to the door. "My warriors. Victor and Gorthek, they came to escort me home. Now they are gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. Something is hunting. Kraxon's on this station." Sarah felt her heart sink. 2 more victims. "When did they disappear?" "Victor yesterday. Gorthek 4 hours ago." Thakmer's yellow eyes met hers through the window. "It is connected to what I did to you. I know this. Some force seeks revenge for my actions." "It's not revenge," Sarah said quietly. "It's protection. Something is trying to protect me, but it doesn't understand the difference between real threats and innocent bystanders." Thakmer was quiet for a long moment. What kind of creature has this power? To make beings vanish without trace? Before Sarah could answer, the lights in the detention area went out. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. The temperature dropped so quickly that Sarah's breath formed clouds in the air. "It's here," she whispered in the darkness. Beyond the detention cells, something moved. It was larger than Sarah had imagined from her dreams. The void wraith flowed through the corridor like living night, its form shifting between solid shadow and streams of dark energy. Where its presence passed, frost formed on the metal walls. 2 points of starlight served as its eyes. They fixed on Thakmer through his cell door with ancient hunger. "Don't," Sarah said, stepping between the creature and the cell. "Please, he's not a threat anymore." The void wraith paused. Its attention shifted to Sarah, and immediately the hunger in its starlight eyes changed to something warm and protective. It projected emotions directly into her mind. Love beyond human understanding, the need to keep her safe from all harm. Confusion about why she would protect the being that had hurt her. Sarah reached out toward the creature. Her hand passed through its shifting form, but she could feel its essence. It was ancient beyond measure, older than most stars. It had drifted through the emptiness between galaxies for eons, consuming the energy of dying worlds and the life force of lesser beings. But now it had found something worth more than feeding. It had found her. "I know you want to protect me," Sarah said softly. "I can feel how much you care. But killing everyone who was present when I got hurt won't make me safer. It will just create more enemies." The void wraith projected images into her mind. Sarah saw herself through its perception. She glowed with kindness and compassion like a beacon in the darkness. When Thakmer had struck her, it had felt like watching a star being destroyed. The creature's protective instincts had awakened. After ages of dormancy, "Show yourself fully," Sarah said. "Let me see who you really are." The void wraith hesitated, then began to solidify. Its form became more defined, rising to nearly 10 feet in height. It looked like a figure carved from the space between stars, with flowing robes made of cosmic dust and energy. Its face was beautiful and terrible, with features that seemed to shift between alien geometries and something almost human. The starlight eyes held intelligence older than Earth itself. Thakmer made a sound of terror and backed against the far wall of his cell. "Void wraith," he whispered in his native language. "The devourers from the edge of space. I thought they were myths." "Not a myth," the creature spoke for the first time, its voice like the sound of solar wind across asteroid fields. The words formed directly in their minds rather than through sound, but changed, made different by witnessing compassion. "Sarah, felt tears running down her cheeks. The creature's love for her was overwhelming in its intensity. It had abandoned its nature as a cosmic predator, because watching her care for others had taught it there were things more valuable than hunger and power. "Your name," Sarah said. "What should I call you?" In the void between galaxies, names have no meaning. "But if you require designation, The creature paused, searching through Sarah's memories for appropriate concepts. "Kethver. It means guardian of the precious in a language dead before your son was born." Behind them, Thakmer slumped to the floor of his cell. He understood? Now what had been hunting his people? A creature capable of destroying entire star systems had taken interest in human affairs. His assault on Sarah had awakened something that could end civilizations. The others, Sarah asked. The Centauri traders, the Altarian diplomat, the Kraxan warriors, are they dead? Kethver's starlight eyes dimmed with something that might have been regret. Consumed. Their life energy feeds my form in this reality. I cannot return what has been taken. Sarah felt sick, but she forced herself to continue. Thakmer hit me, yes. But the others were just witnesses. They didn't deserve to die. I do not understand the distinction you make, Kethver replied. All who were present when you suffered pain share responsibility for that pain. That's not how it works, Sarah said. Sometimes people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes witnesses are victims too, not participants. Kethver studied her with ancient eyes. For countless eons, it had existed in a universe where survival meant consuming others before they could consume you. The concepts of innocence and accidental involvement were foreign to its understanding. Teach me, it said finally. Show me how to distinguish between threat and coincidence. I would learn these human concepts if they matter to you. Sarah looked at Thakmer cowering in his cell, then back at the cosmic being that had fallen in love with her capacity for kindness. She realized that she held tremendous power in this moment. Her words could determine whether Kethver became humanity's greatest protector or its most dangerous enemy. I'll teach you, she said. But first you have to promise me something. No more killing unless I agree that someone is truly a threat. Can you do that? Kethver was silent for a long moment. Then it slowly nodded its ancient head. For you, Sarah-chun, I would learn to value the lives of those I once considered food. But in return, you must allow me to remain close. To protect you from true dangers that may come. Sarah smiled despite her tears. I think I'd like that very much. Outside the detention area, the lights flickered back to normal. The temperature returned to comfortable levels. But word was already spreading throughout the station that something fundamental had changed in the balance of power. Aboard New Geneva Station, humanity had just gained an ally that could reshape the galaxy. 3 weeks after the incident in the detention area, New Geneva Station had become the most talked-about location in the galaxy. Ships arrived daily carrying diplomats, scientists, and curious observers from dozens of species. Everyone wanted to see the human who had tamed a void wraith. Sarah sat in her laboratory, reviewing data from her latest xenobiology research. The work felt different now. Where before she had studied alien behavior to prevent conflicts, now she was helping establish entirely new forms of interspecies cooperation. Her recommendations carried weight that she had never imagined possible. Kethver materialized in the corner of the room, his form more solid and defined than it had been. In their early encounters, he had been practicing taking a less frightening appearance around other beings. Instead of the cosmic horror that had first terrified Thakmer, he now appeared as a tall humanoid figure made of shifting starlight and cosmic dust. His face was still alien but no longer completely terrifying to look upon. The Altarian delegation has arrived, he informed her in his voice like solar wind. They wish to discuss trade agreements with humanity. They specifically requested your presence at the negotiations. Sarah smiled. 2 months ago, the Altarians barely acknowledged that humans existed. Now they want trade deals. I wonder what changed their minds. Kethver's starlight eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. Perhaps they have heard rumors about humanity's new allies. The truth was that word had spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Humanity, a species most aliens considered young and weak, had somehow earned the protection of one of the universe's most feared predators. The political implications were staggering. Sarah's personal communication device buzzed with an incoming message from Commander Hayes. The security chief wanted to brief her on the current situation before the afternoon's diplomatic meetings. "I'll be right there," Sarah told Kethver. "Will you come with me?" "Always," he replied. "I have promised to remain close to ensure your safety." They made their way through the station's corridors. Other beings pressed themselves against the walls when they saw Kethver approaching. His reputation had spread along with the news of his bond with Sarah. Most aliens gave them respectful distance, though Sarah noticed that many also watched her with curious eyes. She had become something of a celebrity in xenobiological circles. Commander Hayes was waiting in her office with a holographic display showing ship positions around the station. The number of vessels had tripled since news of the Void Wraith's presence had spread. "Dr. Chun, we have a situation developing," Commander Hayes said without preamble. "3 different military fleets have taken positions at the edge of our system. The Kraxan Empire wants Thakmor released to their custody. The Centauri Collective is demanding compensation for their missing traders. And the Galactic Council has sent a task force to investigate reports of illegal weapons on our station." Sarah felt Kethver's presence grow more intense behind her. The ancient being did not like the sound of military threats against the station where Sarah lived. "What kind of illegal weapons?" Sarah asked. Commander Hayes gestured toward Kethver. "The Galactic Council has laws against harboring planet-killer-class entities within civilian space. They're classifying your friend as a weapon of mass destruction." Kethver stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the office's metal walls vibrate. "I am no weapon. I am a guardian. Those who threaten Sarah Chun threaten me." "That's exactly what they're afraid of," Commander Hayes replied. "A void wraith with personal attachments is unpredictable. The Council wants you removed from inhabited space or destroyed." Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. They can't just declare Kethver illegal. He hasn't harmed anyone since we reached our agreement. "Tell that to the families of the beings he consumed before your agreement," Commander Hayes said gently. "I understand your position, Dr. Chun, but we're dealing with galaxy-wide politics now. Some species are calling for preemptive strikes against Earth itself to prevent humans from allying with more cosmic horrors." The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders like a heavy blanket. Her personal relationship with Kethver had somehow become a matter of interstellar security. Decisions she made in the next few hours could determine whether humanity was welcomed into the galactic community or bombed back to the Stone Age. "What are our options?" she asked. "The Council is offering a compromise," Commander Hayes said. "They want you and Kethver to appear before their assembly on Nexus Prime. If you can convince them that your alliance poses no threat to galactic security, they'll recognize humanity's right to unusual diplomatic partnerships." Kethver's form darkened with anger. "I will not be judged by creatures whose entire civilizations would not survive one solar storm. Sarah Chun has shown me the value of mercy and restraint. I have harmed no innocent beings since learning these concepts." "But you did harm innocent beings before," Sarah said quietly. "The Centauri traders and the Altarian diplomat weren't threats. They were just unlucky enough to witness my assault." Kethver's starlight eyes dimmed. "Yes, I acted without understanding. I have much to learn about the distinctions your species makes between guilt and coincidence." Sarah made her decision. "We'll go to Nexus Prime, we'll face the Galactic Council, and prove that our alliance can be a force for peace, not destruction." Commander Hayes looked relieved. "I'll arrange transport." "But Dr. Chun, you should know that several council members are calling for Kethver to be contained in a stellar prison. They want to trap him inside a dying star until he burns out." Kethver's form expanded slightly, cosmic energy crackling around his edges. "Let them try? I have consumed the hearts of dying stars before. Their prisons would only make me stronger. That's exactly the kind of response they're afraid of, Sarah said, placing her hand where Kethver's arm would be if he were human. Her touch seemed to calm him. We need to show them that you've changed. That love has made you different from other void wraiths. Over the following days, Sarah prepared for the most important presentation of her life. She gathered documentation of Kethver's behavior since their bond had formed. Security footage showed him helping repair damaged sections of the station using his energy manipulation abilities. Medical records proved he had assisted in several emergency situations, using his vast knowledge of energy patterns to help doctors treat injured aliens. The journey to Nexus Prime took 5 days. Sarah spent the time teaching Kethver about galactic law and diplomatic protocol. The ancient being was a fast learner, absorbing concepts that had taken human civilization millennia to develop. Why do you wish to be accepted by these younger species? Kethver asked during one of their study sessions. I could protect you more effectively if we simply departed to the void between galaxies. There, nothing could threaten you. Sarah looked out at the stars streaming past their ship's windows. Because isolation isn't protection, it's just another kind of prison. I want to keep doing my work, helping different species understand each other, and I want you to be part of that. Kethver was quiet for a long moment. You wish me to become more than a guardian. You wish me to become a bridge between your kind and the cosmos itself. Only if that's what you want, too. What I want, Kethver said slowly, is to continue learning what it means to value life instead of consuming it. You have shown me that existence can have purpose beyond survival. I would explore these concepts further. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters, Sarah felt the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon them. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered to witness this unprecedented hearing. The council chamber was vast, with seating arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Sarah and Kethver took their positions at the center, while beings from across the galaxy watched from the surrounding tiers. Council Speaker Vorthan, an ancient crystalline being whose species had helped found galactic civilization, called the session to order. We are here to determine whether the entity known as Kethver poses a threat to galactic security, the speaker announced in a voice like chiming crystal. Dr. Sarah Chun of Earth, you have claimed that this void wraith has been transformed by its association with humanity. Present your evidence. Sarah stepped forward. Honored council members, 3 months ago I was just a xenobiologist trying to prevent conflicts between species. Today I stand before you as proof that understanding and compassion can change even the most fundamental aspects of existence. She activated her presentation, showing the assembled delegates footage of Kethver's helpful actions aboard New Geneva Station. She explained how the ancient being had learned to value individual lives and had honored their agreement to protect rather than consume. The creature you fear no longer exists, Sarah concluded. Kethver has chosen love over hunger, protection over predation. He represents what all of us can become when we choose to see beyond our original nature. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates called for Kethver's immediate destruction. Others argued that humanity's achievement in transforming a cosmic predator into an ally was worthy of respect and study.